Third time, definitely the charm. So, did a lot of math. I'm going to link both videos. I'm going to link all the reports that we go over, as well as all the research and everything else. Also making some corrections to the last Snap video because I did not know that illegal immigrants were a part of the unemployed statistic that we were looking at before. And also, we found out that with a simple Google search, you can find out that undocumented immigrants are ineligible to receive federal supplemental nutrition assistance program SNAP benefits. It's that simple. The ones that do supposedly receive SNAP benefits is on behalf of their children. It's their children that are being counted if they have kids. Okay? And mind you, obviously, not all the illegal families that are coming over have kids. In fact, when we look at the numbers from all the various reports, we get a lot of this. So the numbers, when we look at the total amount of illegal immigrants, supposedly, and this is accounting both for possibly being a refugee or asylum seeker, as the definition has changed, especially this year, as anyone that's an asylum seeker or refugee is just simply illegal by the eyes of this government. That is just how it is. Meanwhile, previously, or at least you would consider people that are coming from hostile governments, countries, etc., through natural disasters or whatever, wouldn't be considered illegal because they're going through some sort of legal process, even if they arrive here and cross the border illegally. As I mean, maybe that's the only way they're able to reach out to anyone. Maybe they just don't have cell phones or access to technology in order to help them, right? Especially if it's an emergency and they have to make a last minute decision to do what they had to do to survive. It's kind of just, you know, common sense when you think about existence, but no one seems to really give a shit about that. So in regards to total amount of the influx of quote unquote illegal immigrants, the influx comes from simply people seeking asylum, whether it's from Venezuela, Honduras, Guatemala, Haiti, for whatever reasons that are going on, and various other countries. In fact, most of them seem to come through, well, not from just Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and even India, as I mean, that's going through wartime as well right now with Pakistan, on and off. But most of them seem to go through Florida, right? And Florida is a big red state. I don't hear a lot about Florida when it comes to ICE or immigration. In fact, they seem to just want to go after whoever they feel is the political enemy. Even when you look at California, and this is back in from 2021 to 2023, the amount of growth in immigration, right? And that's considering those that are refugee status. I mean, that is typically only considering the 2 million increase for refugees and asylum seekers. Those are the quote-unquote illegal immigrants that everyone's bitching about, that the president uses the grandstand on, that there was open border policy. It was not open border policy. In fact, they were coming in through boats into Florida, your home, well, second home state. So that's ironic and a half right there. Not to mention, I mean, California has even less coming in than Texas. Yeah, sure, yeah, Texas is bordering Mexico, but when we look at, I don't know, U.S. unauthorized immigrant population from countries, when we look at the amount that are coming from Mexico, that dropped, whereas countries other than Mexico, which is Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, India, Venezuela, etc., that's where the 2 million came from. They didn't cross in through Mexico, they didn't cross in through Canada, so all the bullshit tariff talk in the beginning of this year saying that the illegal immigrants are bringing drugs through, etc., etc. No, they're coming in through boats through Florida. All right? And that's what's happening. And they're not always bringing drugs. In fact, we have a lot of questions about this current administration's defense policy in regards to indiscriminately bombing boats coming from Venezuela within international waters, as the UN does not like that. In fact, we could easily intercept those boats and arrest them instead of bombing them right away, you know, following our own constitution and our laws, following international law as well, because you don't have to instantly end someone's existence and someone's life unless, I mean, obviously this administration does not care about human existence or life. It's just its actions clearly show that. Oh yeah, and also refugees and asylum seekers from Ukraine. Can't forget that, you know, what's going on in Ukraine right now. Oh, in Colombia, in Cuba, Nicaragua, Ecuador. So the number, the 2 million, the open border policy, we were saving people. Sure, you can argue like if we're in the position to be doing that or not, but it's not like they're not working either. Most of them end up working. About 99% of them end up working. Okay? They get jobs, and if you're considering their children too, then the percentage will be lower. Sure. Whatever. But simply put, I think it's just the skew in the understanding of the definition of what is an illegal immigrant and what might not be, because refugee and asylum cases, I mean, they follow laws and procedures. They're going through court cases, but that all changed at the beginning of 2025 when this administration decided to redefine what that meant and to throw away a lot of those policies, which threw away work visas. To go through an asylum process, they get assigned a visa. That was a legal process, okay? But that's, to some people, they just want to define that as illegal just to pump them numbers up, boy. And that's exactly what we're seeing here, because the amount of illegals, at least the ones that they're actually looking for, is really just 8 million. But we do the math with the 14 million, okay? We'll consider that. As well as maybe part of them, if their asylum cases are approved or whatever, they get visas, then maybe, just maybe, then they'll have a social security number so they can get SNAP. Just maybe. But even with that consideration, I mean, otherwise they're working, so they're most likely not even getting a lot from SNAP to begin with. Because even people that get Social Security, that goes against their SNAP. People that get unemployment, that goes against their SNAP allowances. To where they end up only getting like $20-something a month. Mind you, a month out of the total. So who SNAP actually benefits is really the children and families that have multiple children that are either disabled as well. That's a big consideration, right? The big thing to understand. As well as the elderly. Even if it's small amounts going off of their Social Security, elderly being considered 55 or older, which that's changing during the next couple of years to 65 and older. So good luck to that. As well as the work requirements and everything else, and just, it's a big mess. But essentially, with that in mind, we got the 14 million, 8 million actually illegal entry, no case for protection, 6 million considered illegal by entry, but protected due to seeking asylum. Now, in regards to the amount of children which might be getting SNAP, because this is what we're looking at, is are illegals getting SNAP benefits? I mean, they are not. They don't have Social Security numbers unless they're doing fraud, and even if they're doing fraud, the fraud only accounts for about 1%, if that. Not even. The fraud from illegal immigrants is 0.1%. Benefits to... Nope, this is undocumented. Nope, fraud related. Yep, there we go. Overall SNAP fraud is low. So this is overall, whether it's illegal immigrants or not, right? People that work under the table jobs that are still claiming to get food stamps, or that are making up the amount of dependents or changing their household income, and then come tax season, that inevitably typically gets corrected. About 1% of the total payments. So out of the, you could say 100.3 billion, 1% of that, or 1 billion, if that, has been spent on people committing fraud. Whereas fraud by undocumented individuals in particular, it's 0.1%, so 1/10 of that. So 1%, well, not 1%, but 0.1% of 100 billion, 100 million at most, maybe 200 million being spent out of the total when it comes to fraud by undocumented individuals. And this might be undocumented individuals that claim to have kids of legal status because they need to have Social Securities, or maybe people that steal Social Security numbers. But in regards to fiscal year 2022, so year 2023, which is the day that we're looking at, because that's where it ends, nearly 1.5 million non-citizens received SNAP benefits, but they were overwhelmingly eligible under federal rules because of the asylum, and well, that and their children, especially if they're pregnant women coming over here giving birth. All right, and that, you can consider that a whole other issue. Check out the previous videos, I expand upon that as well, my thoughts on that. But overall, when we're looking at the numbers, I mean, when we just consider the 1.5 million illegal children that are in this country, children that were not born here that were brought over the border. And then in comparison as well to the 4.6 million children that were born in the US from illegal parents that have been here. So out of that 8 million, or maybe if you want to consider at least 4 million of that 2 million that came over, right? Again, this is children up till the age of 18 that would be considered for SNAP, 4.6 million. All right. Birthright citizenship as it exists. Because it's not their fault that they're here, really. They're on board. They didn't have a choice. They don't have a choice to do anything. They're kids. All right. And if you want to hold the parents accountable for that, sure, then do that, but do it legally through an actual process and hear their case. And if they're part of the 2 million that just came in from other countries through asylum seeking processes, just because you change the definition of what illegal is under the eyes of the law, it doesn't make them necessarily illegal, especially as that was the law previously. That's like saying that murder was always illegal up until maybe yesterday, and now murder is not illegal anymore. Or actually, no, that's kind of the opposite analogy. A better analogy would be, I don't know, eating apples. That's never been illegal, right? But all of a sudden, everyone that's ever eaten an apple, you go to jail. You go to jail. And you retroactively apply that? Just imagine. Just imagine. That's essentially what they're doing to at least 6 million individuals that are under asylum seeking programs and refugee programs from countries that are going through a lot of stuff. They're doing whatever they can for their survival, and meanwhile they're getting in trouble for it, when it's not necessarily even a crime to begin with. It was only made a crime because policy decided to change, and it's being retroactively affected, just like that Apple analogy. So you can see where things just seem really screwed up. But in the eyes of many, some people want that. Some people believe in that. They believe that's how it should work. They believe in thinning the herd. And if the herd doesn't look like them, talk like them, act like them, then they're not a part of the herd, I guess. But regardless, when we look at the total amount of immigrants that are legal and illegal, 47.8 million. Now, this number is strange when we look at it and account for what's actually illegal. I think part of this number excludes asylum seeking, people that are in the middle, per se. Because when we do the math, we get that 8.1 million that aligns with the 8 million undocumented, accounted for people that don't have protections. Meanwhile, naturalized, that's a whole obviously separate category. Same thing with green card, 9.9. Maybe under the green card, part of that 6 million is there. Maybe. Or, well, not the temp visa, that wouldn't make sense. That just wouldn't make sense mathematically to consider those 6 million. So maybe, or maybe they're just not even accounted for at all, and they're just in a separate limbo, per se. So that number was very interesting when we looked at it. In terms of deportations and the rate of deportations, I mean, up until September 2025, there was 340,000 deportations for fiscal year 2025. So from September 2024 to 2025. Self-deport, 1.6 million. And this must be immigrants of some sort, whether maybe illegal or legal. I'm unsure about that. There's no way to really expand upon it. It could be through that illegal self-deportation program where people get a couple of thousand for self-deporting. Could be most likely through that. Now the updated, which I found out today, it's 527,000. So about almost 200,000 within a month. Within a month, deported. All right. And that's the number that's reflecting against the 14 million total. In fact, I mean, or well, even the 8 million. But then again, with the change in definition, it's easily including the whole entire 14 million when it comes to deportations. Easily. And with the rate slowing down after 2023 because of the election and concerns, right? There wasn't another 2 million from 2024 or 2023 to 2024 or 2023 to now that was added. If anything, it's slowed down. So at most, if I'm going to be a little generous here, maybe 15.5 million. So 1.5. Maybe continued at a rate, but ended at 1.5. We won't know until we actually somehow get numbers on that, which I don't think we will, especially with this administration. And not trustworthy numbers, if that. And mind you, we already have over 2 million deports between both self-deportation and being disappeared. So this number is easily, as of today, less than 14 million. Easily. Easily. No matter how you want to try to bullshit or look at it. So it's going down. So you're doing the thing, but a lot of people that aren't actually out of that 8 million that are illegal are getting deported. And mind you, not all of them are criminals either. That's a whole other consideration too, especially with the changes in considerations for legal status when it comes to green card holders, and if they even have a misdemeanor or a parking ticket, as that could easily, and mind you, that's the legal immigrants now that we're going into. So the 47.8 now that we're considering. All right, because the rules changing again, the definition. So if you're an immigrant, no matter if you're legal or not, if you have a misdemeanor, you're now illegal and you're getting deported. That's the most recent one. So now we went from, oh, we didn't really have a lot of illegals here, to we're considering all the asylum and refugee seekers that are from war-torn countries or bad governance. So I went up to 14 million. It's like, oh, that number seems a lot. And now every single immigrant that's ever been naturalized, green card, temp visa, just those immigrants are now, if they have a misdemeanor, a parking violation, a ticket, or anything, they could be deported. They could be considered illegal. So this makes the situation seem a lot worse, especially from a Republican talking standpoint. But it's just simply not true because they're changing the definitions as we speak. And then when we count for children, so the people that are under illegal parents, right, but are US-born citizens, this is the most likely because the amount of illegal immigrants on SNAP is 0. And this also could be considered children because they don't have social security numbers. They don't have a way to apply for SNAP. They don't have that. The 4.6 million children that were born from illegal parents through birthright citizenship that get assigned social security numbers are eligible for SNAP. But when they get the allowances, their parents are not included. Obviously, they're not included in the participation either. It's the child that is. So when we weigh that against what we know about the total amount of SNAP recipients that we were looking over before and the makeup of that, as well as the unemployed, the number is just, man, it's just literally punishing an entire eighth of the population over potentially 6% of them, potentially, between the two big talking points. One being that young men are lazy and taking advantage of the system, that are unemployed, that are not working, alongside illegal immigrant children, whether or not they were born here, that are part of the SNAP program. Those are the 2 points that are causing SNAP benefits to be withheld at this point. Besides the whole, trying to blame Democrats for as much as you can to make them look bad so that people might end up becoming more violent toward them. Because that's what it easily seems like is going on. So, in total, when we look at the total amount of children that rely on SNAP, regardless of immigration status of themselves, 16 million. 6.1 million children are from illegal parents, regardless of their individual status. All right. 1.5 being illegal children, which might not be a part of that system, which then we have about 90%. So that weighs negatively against what we're describing, but it's still 9 out of 10 that are either working, that are children of working parents, okay? Because we already took out the unemployed. We factored that out. That's what's taken out of this number, is the unemployed as well as the illegal children when we look at the 90%. So we're factoring out the unemployed from 20 to 55 out of the total SNAP recipients. And again, illegals do not receive SNAP. They are not able to. And if you consider illegals to be asylum or refugee, then you are simply delusional and do not know how to read. Or you're just too lost in the Kool-Aid of this administration and you believe that 47.8 million people of the population of 340 million, so I don't know. Let's math. So I want to finish this and be done. So 47.8 divided by 340. So 14% of the population. So you just believe 14% of the population just should not be here, regardless of immigration status. Because that's what's happening, especially if someone gets accused for a crime, whether they committed it or not, and they don't have the resources to fight back against a system that has seemingly unlimited amounts of money to put you in jail or do whatever they feel like. So big concerns, right? Big concerns when we're talking about that. But when we're talking about actually like people that have a legal status, and then considering, some of them have children that they gave birth to here, the 4.6 birthright children, alongside the rest of the children that totally rely on SNAP regardless of immigration status of themselves. So you could just minus 1.5 from the 16 million, and that's how I got the 90% in regards to the amount of SNAP recipients that are either children, elderly, 55 and up, working, or disabled with legal status or protections. And this is disabled and with legal status or protections is considering the entire SNAP recipient pool. And then 10%, if that, are just unemployed adults. If that. Not even, because we did the math with that. We found the unemployed adults. It's about 5.5% of SNAP recipients are unemployed, able-bodied adults. Only 5%. And if you look at strictly men, so a correction from last video, against just SNAP recipients, 3.7% of SNAP recipients are unemployed, able-bodied men between the ages of 20 to 55. So not just young men, but just men. And then if you compare this to the population, it's less than 0.1%. Just easy. I don't even have to do that for you. And this is one talking point that's been levied alongside the illegals get SNAP or illegals get healthcare. Because these same rules that I just mentioned to you, how illegals don't get SNAP, they don't get healthcare either through the Affordable Care Act because you need a social security number. And if you're part of the fraud, then you're part of the 0.1% of that fraud, I guess. I don't know. There's no substantial number to really be a sticking point to make an eighth of the population suffer. And not even just an eighth, you're hurting the businesses. You're hurting the farmers. You're hurting the everyday working American, the middle class, because those businesses and farmers are going to have to increase prices because they're losing at least an eighth of their profit. At least an eighth of their profit. It disproportionately affects poorer grocers, grocers that SNAP recipients typically go to, as that probably makes up almost a majority of the business's income if it's an affordable one. Because you don't see people with SNAP going to Whole Foods buying like 5 heads of lettuce when they can go to Market Basket or Stop and Shop and buy 20 heads of lettuce for the same price. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't make sense in any stretch of the imagination, unless you really assume that people are just that stupid. I don't know, but it just doesn't make sense when we look at 14.5% children from illegal parents participate in the SNAP program regardless of employment. So regardless of if the illegal parent is working or not, because the majority of them are working, the illegal parents aren't getting the benefits, it's their children, and that's the allowance that they're getting, is for their children. You'll see them, like the parents, go to the store, and you'll see that maybe they're different skin colors, speak a different language, whatever, and you see the card, and you're like, oh, that must be an illegal. Then they're not working or whatever. Like, that's how delusional people are these days, too. Because when you see that, you're not seeing the truth that they're really just getting food for their kids, because that's what they're getting allotted. And if they have an income, it's going to weigh against that anyways, because it's, again, by household income. Even if you're illegal, you should report the income, and if you don't and the kid gets full benefits, then honestly, good. Because the benefits, on average, is like $188. With a family, maybe the max you're going to get is 7 something, if that. The max is for individual if they're not receiving anything, and that's including not receiving unemployment and Social Security. So this reflects against the elderly as well as children, right? Is 258? No, 298 now. That's the max. But if you make anything, like I just said, so even if the illegal parents are having an income, it's going against that. So they might not even be eligible if they report that they're making a certain amount. And if they don't report that they're making a certain amount, then it's only going to be based off the one dependent, and at most they're getting $298 a month. That's it. For themselves and their kid. No matter how many hours they're working or whatever. No matter if they have a car or whatever. And again, that's a month. You can spend $298 at the grocery store for you, your significant other, and a kid in 1 week. Easily. Even if you try to coupon clip or whatever, maybe you can span it out for half a month. But that's all you're getting. And again, that's if the parent's unemployed, it doesn't matter. If they're illegal, unemployed, or employed, it doesn't matter because they're not getting considered a part of the number. Whereas if it was a parent of legal status that was unemployed, then yeah, they would be considered a part of the SNAP participation number. But then they're not illegal and they're not a part of your sticking point. So that's something that needs to be considered. So anyways, hopefully this helps put some perspective alongside the other videos that we did. I don't want to make this any longer than I had to. But to end it, I mean, people are just absolutely ridiculous. They don't know how to look things up for themselves, and we're also going to do probably a quick video on how to look into these numbers in the first place and how to do research like I do, because it's not that hard if you take at least a little bit of time to look into this stuff and to work through what's available. At least before this administration takes it into their own hands to cook these books more than what they plan on doing, to be honest. So take a look for yourself. Take a look at the other videos. I'll also link these below. This has already been 27 minutes. No matter how I present this, is going to take forever. So maybe, oh my god. Maybe I'm just going to do a video just pointing out the one fact. And I'm going to link everything else. Alright, so this is the third video, and we'll do one more. That's probably going to be a couple minutes. Alright, so anyways, stay tuned. We're going to do more content soon in regards to how to look things up, as well as going back to the whole psychology, weighing consciousness, and looking into other things that are not political, at least. But everything's relative in some way, so eventually we'll come back full circle. But until next time, this is Spark saying peace, and do your research. Take some time. Look into these things, because, my god, I did not know that the unemployed also included illegal immigrants, and the fact that illegal immigrants cannot get SNAP benefits unless they have children of legal status. And even if they did, it would be only covering for the child, not themselves. Then, you know, that's the truth. I'm sorry. Even from my own personal experience, from people that I've known throughout my life, that is how the system works. Even with my own experience within the system, that is exactly how it works. And people just seem to not understand any of this and don't want to take the time to listen to it. Because the amount of feelings that I've heard just from saying out numbers, it's too many. Too many. And people would rather be angry than to take even a moment to question their own beliefs. And that is why we're in the situation we're in today. That is why there's so much ignorance. And that is why people just simply don't seem to understand that they've been lied to every single minute, every single day by mostly one particular party. Okay? Easily. I mean, the fact that a Ronald Reagan ad pissed off the base so much that, mind you, the video itself was released like 8 years ago. before AI was even as good as it is now, and then claiming that it was AI generated when it was Ronald Reagan's actual freaking words and voice and image, just with some coloring. Actually, that might have been the original coloring, just with a little high def filter over it, perhaps. Or just converted. It wasn't AI generated, though, that's for damn sure. But they lie. This is what they always do. They take parts of these numbers that we went over here, and they conflate them. And they bend the meanings of words, they bend the definitions, they change the policies ever so slightly with just a few words, and then they posture. They posture the hell out of these points to a point where you believe it. You believe it. You want to be mad. You want to be mad at something, and they're giving you big numbers to be mad at. When in reality, those big numbers aren't the numbers that they seem to really be. Right? That 2 million influx. People seeking asylum from Ukraine, from the Ukraine war, from the tropical storms that hit Haiti and destroyed Haiti, from the political warfare going on within Venezuela, Guatemala, the crime syndicate that is easily involved with the government of El Salvador, and so many other things that people just don't seem to give a shit about. So, here we are, just bringing up the facts, and if you like it, let me know. If you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you. You're screwed. You're too lost in the sauce, and unless you take a minute to question yourself and to ask Google, at least ask Google, because that'll give you closer to the right answer than even ChatGPT these days or Grok. And man, you just got to take the time to understand things for what they are. If you don't, and if you act based off emotional response and irrationality, you're only going to end up hurting other people. And inevitably, you're going to end up hurting yourself and your own self-image and what people think of you, how people look at you. You'll end up falling into self-justified acts of cruelty, like what this administration is doing right now. Because they justify it by inflating certain numbers that genuinely don't mean what they mean. So until next time, this is Spark saying peace. And yeah, I'll just do like a minute long video. Anyways.